Section 24, Legal Hotline Q&A, Arizona Fair Housing 101, putting it all together. As Sarah prepared to finish the course, she looked through the notebook she had filled over the past several weeks. "We've covered a lot," she said. "Protected classes, advertising, disability, investigations, reasonable accommodations, enforcement." David smiled. "And now it's time to see how all of those topics come together in everyday practice." He reached for one final legal hotline folder. These are the kinds of questions Arizona brokers receive every year. Legal hotline question number 1. Must a seller disclose a nearby recovery home? Question. A seller's home is located next to a residential recovery home for individuals recovering from drug or alcohol addiction. Must the seller or listing agent disclose the existence of the recovery home to prospective buyers? David explained that individuals recovering from drug or alcohol addiction may qualify as persons with disabilities under the Fair Housing Act. Because disability is a protected class, licensees should not disclose the presence of protected individuals in a neighborhood as though it were a material fact affecting the property. "Our job is to disclose material facts about the property," David explained, "not personal information about the people living nearby." Legal hotline question number 2. Can a seller refuse an offer because the buyer uses a housing voucher? Question. A seller tells the listing agent, "I don't want to accept an offer from someone using a housing voucher." Should the listing agent follow those instructions? Answer. The licensee should immediately consult with their designated broker. David explained that fair housing laws continue to evolve, and state and local laws may provide protections beyond the Federal Fair Housing Act. Arizona licensees should avoid making decisions that could unlawfully discriminate, and should seek broker guidance whenever housing assistance programs become part of a transaction. The safest approach, David explained, is to evaluate offers based on their contractual terms, not assumptions about the buyer. Legal hotline question number 3. Can an agent recommend one neighborhood over another? Question. A buyer asks, "Which neighborhood would be best for raising my family?" Should the agent recommend a neighborhood? Answer. No. David explained that licensees should avoid steering buyers toward or away from neighborhoods based upon protected characteristics. Instead, agents should encourage buyers to identify the objective features that matter to them and direct them to independent resources where they can research schools, crime statistics, community services, commute times, and other neighborhood information. The buyer chooses the neighborhood. The agent provides objective information. Legal hotline question number 4. Can a landlord require medical records for an assistance animal? Question. A landlord receives a request for an assistance animal. May the landlord require the tenant to provide complete medical records before considering the request? Answer. Generally, no. David explained that when a disability or disability-related need is not readily apparent, a housing provider may request reliable information that supports the request, consistent with current HUD guidance. However, requesting complete medical records or demanding unnecessary medical information may exceed what fair housing laws permit. The request should be limited to the information reasonably necessary to evaluate the accommodation. What Sarah learned. Sarah closed the final legal hotline folder. "I've noticed every fair housing answer follows the same pattern." David smiled. "What pattern?" "Gather the facts, apply the law, treat everyone consistently, and when you're unsure, call your broker." David laughed. "You've learned the most important lesson in the entire course. Good brokers don't guess. They ask questions before making decisions." Arizona broker tip. Many fair housing complaints begin with good intentions but poor assumptions. Never assume what a buyer wants, where they should live, what accommodations are appropriate, or how a protected class affects a transaction. Ask objective questions, provide factual information, document your actions, and involve your designated broker whenever fair housing concerns arise. Online discussion question 1. Why should licensees avoid discussing the protected characteristics of neighborhood residents with prospective buyers? Answer. Fair housing laws prohibit discrimination based on protected characteristics. Discussing neighbors based on disability, race, religion, familial status, or other protected classes may improperly influence a buyer's housing decision and expose the licensee to fair housing liability. Question 2. How should an agent respond when a buyer asks for a recommendation on the best neighborhood? Answer. The agent should ask objective questions about the buyer's preferences and direct the buyer to independent sources of information. The buyer, not the agent, should decide which neighborhood best meets their needs. Question 3. Why is it important to involve a designated broker when a fair housing question arises? Fair housing issues often involve complex legal requirements. Consulting the designated broker helps ensure that decisions comply with federal and Arizona law, while protecting both the client and the licensee.